Welcome to the final session, session 10 of this course, Project Review and Reflection. Every project has to come to an end, and at the end of the project, you need to carry out a review and reflect on what you have achieved. At the end of this lecture, you should be able to understand how to carry out an end of project evaluation, reflect on project events, problems, and deliverables, adopt a professional attitude to continuous improvement and personal development in project work. So, we've looked at project management processes, such as initiating processes, planning processes, executing processes, monitoring and controlling processes, and then the closing processes, which is the topic of discussion for now. Closing processes. This session is concerned with the closing process activities. We define closing as follows: formalizing the acceptance of the project or phase and ensuring all relevant documentation is put in place. Note that the use of the phrase or phase, it indicates that closing activities should occur at the end of each phase throughout the life of a project. It means that the closing activity does not only happen at the end of the project, at the end of the life of the project, but it can occur, closing activities can happen at the end of each phase. We are going to focus on two things here: post-delivery reviews and end of project reports. Post-delivery reviews, sometimes known as post-completion review or post-implementation review. Important to learn from feedback of experience for the individual or for the organization. It reinforces good behavior and identifies what does not work. A review is not an occasion for disciplining or punishment. That's not the aim. The aim of these reviews is to facilitate learning, and the actual project documentation would include aim and objectives of the project, the WBS, the Gantt chart, critical path, risk management documents, reports from earlier project review meetings. So these are all information sources that you use to support a project review. If you have access to members of the original project team, then that will be useful, as they can provide the rationale behind the decisions that were made earlier. What's the scope of a PDR? The specific aspects of a PDR are to consider would include the success of the product produced, delivered value or actual benefit, how the project is delivered with regard to the project triangle factors. We call that financial, schedule, time schedule, and scope, and the specified quality objectives. The project process, including the quality of the project documentation and the project plans. Then the team working. As well as looking at the team working, an individual performance review should be carried out for each member of the project team. Whose duty is it to carry out a PDR? The project manager carries out the project PDR with the rest of the project team. An independent PDR or project audit can also be carried out by people external to the project. Individual project performance reviews are carried out by the project manager, holding separate reviews with each individual of the team. The checklist that you need to use: the project or product checklist, the project triangle checklist, the process checklist, the team checklist, dealing with problems checklist, and project reflections checklist. What is in the product checklist or the project or product checklist? Was the main project aim achieved? Was it achieved within the schedule, financial, budget projections? Were the project objectives clearly defined? Were all aspects of the work completed? Are there any aspects that remain undone? Note in your student project reports, this would give you scope for discussion in the last part of your report when you talk about problems and future plans. So take note of this, as you will need to include that in your project report. Did the project give the client what was promised? Are the users happy with the result? Is it what they needed? Were their needs correctly identified? Did their needs change during the course of the project? Were all stakeholders identified from the outset? What about the project triangle checklist? How accurate was the financial budget? Was the planned budget exceeded? If so, why? What problems caused the escalation in the budget? Could they have been predicted? Could they have been avoided? How accurate was the schedule? Was the planned schedule exceeded? If so, why? What problems caused escalation? Could this have been predicted or avoided? Was it just one problem that delayed all other activities, or were all activities misestimated? Was the original scope achieved? Were there any changes to the scope during the duration of the project? Why were they approved, or why were they needed? Did they lead to any escalation in either budget or schedule? Was the overall quality acceptable? Were the test plans adequate? Did they pick up all the errors that you know about? What about the process checklist? What goes there, or what questions should be asked? What process was used to manage the project? What parts of the process worked well? What parts of the process would be done differently if you had a second chance? Were the milestones observed? If not, why not? What were the reasons for misapplying those milestones? Team checklist. Was the team effective? Did the team work together and support each other? Would you define the entire project as a success? Why or why not? Was the project organized effectively? Dealing with the problems checklist. If you've identified any major events that have taken place, ask yourself, was this event positive or negative in terms of impact on the project? Was it predictable? Was it avoidable? When was it identified? Were the actions effective from that stage on? Was the communication chain effective? What were the main strengths of the project? What were the major weaknesses? What changes would you recommend for the next project? Did you learn anything from this project? Do you think the project was effectively managed? Was the overall communication process effective? Where did it break down? Did this happen often? Did any of the methods work particularly well? What would you change in the management of the project? Describe one thing that you would have done personally to improve the outcome of the project. What do you do with the lessons you have learned? You have learned a lesson, then you need to share them. You need to revisit your working practices. You need to use these lessons to what? Facilitate training. Of course, you must maintain a repository of key lessons learned. Ensure project managers access to the resources prior to embarking on a new project. End of project reports. What are the purpose of these end of project reports? What do they serve? One is to informing stakeholders that project has finished. They will help in describing the delivered project or product, in setting out the achievements of the project, in documenting all the artifacts or products that were produced by the project, in handing over the product, in requesting product sign-off, releasing resources, stating additional work that is still needed, and thanking people for their help and their effort. What should constitute the contents of an end of project report? Machuka has suggested a minimum of the following: a project summary, which should include project description, project measurable organizational value, scope, schedule, budget, and quality objectives, comparison of plan versus actual, original scope and history of any approved changes, original scheduled deadline versus actual completion dates, original budget versus actual cost of completing the project, test plans and test results, outstanding issues, an itemized list and expected completion, any ongoing support required and duration, a project documentation list, which would include systems documentation, user manuals, training manuals, maintenance documentations. A number of caveats. Note that the last two slides on the contents of end of project reports are more about project progress and handover. They do not include the PDR content. So Machuka discusses project post-mortem reviews separately. Are more industrial in their approach, they are insufficient to satisfy the academic requirements for a student's project report. So you've got to think about a student project report and how that is delivered. So you don't just take this as what should go into your student final year project report. So, in summary, in this session, we have covered post-delivery reviews and end of project reports. It should have given you some ideas and help about how to reflect on project experiences in a professional manner. I hope this course has provided you with some information, enough knowledge to begin to think in a professional manner about projects, and that it would help you to carry out your student project in a very professional way and deliver a very good project. Thank you.